Hey, what up, y'all? This is Patrick Hayes, and today I want to talk a little bit about what I like to call drama vamping. Basically, being a drama vampire and how we can spot this in ourselves as well as in other people. Because drama vamping, or feeding off of negative vibes, feeding off of negative drama, is like a huge issue that goes on with just about everybody on the planet. I remember I was watching this, it was like Confessions of a Clickbait Artist not too long ago, and he was talking about the things that people clicked on most when he would do clickbait campaigns. And I think number one was celebrity deaths, but then he was going off on all these different campaigns of all the things that were like major clickbaits, and it was like, you know, bad tattoos or fails or just different gossip. And there's this thing in humanity that is just extremely fascinated and magnetized towards negativity and drama and gossip and the misfortune of others. And it's something that I've noticed even with my own videos, whereas some of the videos that I would name things that are a little bit, that tug a little bit more at like a dramatic or controversial edge, is what everybody's more attracted to. And so this begs the question, like, why? Why are we so attracted and magnetized by drama, by the misfortune of others, by pain? And, you know, the simple answer that at least I remember hearing this a lot when I was growing up, and it made sense to a certain degree, is that, you know, negativity or thinking bad about someone else or talking bad about someone else, gossiping, this makes people feel better about themselves. And like I said, you've probably heard this before. It makes you feel better about yourself. And I feel like that's, you know, a so-so answer, and there's some truth to it that, you know, through comparison, when people are looking at the misfortune of somebody else, they feel better about themselves. Or if there's some sort of horrific drama that someone else is going through, they can feel better being in their shoes and not the other person's shoes. Therefore, it draws more attention to it. But as a full-on answer, this is not quite fully satisfying to me. Because I think that what's actually going on is there's a feeding going on. It's beyond just creating a value judgment and feeling like you're on a higher plane of judgment. There's actually a feeding that goes on with drama. And you can see this really clearly. I think a good example is through the idea of gossip. Now, we've all had the experience at one point in our lives where we've gossiped or we've observed someone else in a gossip situation. And you'll notice that oftentimes what will happen is that, you know, somebody might be a little bit lethargic or a little bit less inspired, and kind of like, you know, moping along in a conversation or whatever it is. But then once the topic of gossip starts coming up, and it's maybe about someone's misfortune or about how this one person does something they don't like, the person will kind of energize up and then just start going at it. And they're actually feeding off this energy of gossip. It becomes this an energy fuel source. Because before, you know, they weren't that energetic, but all of a sudden, once the gossip happens, you see this kind of shift in character where the person's feeding. And, you know, this is something we can observe in ourselves also. And it's actually very important for us to observe in ourselves, because this is where we can start to identify when we're feeding off lower vibrational energy. Because this is a big thing. You know, it's really interesting. I forget where I read this, but there was a philosophical or a psychological study that was talking about how slaves became accustomed to slave food, and then once they were no longer slaves, they would still eat that same slave food, even though it was really low quality, unhealthy food, because they developed a palate for it. In other words, they developed a taste for slop. And I feel like this is an interesting parallel or an interesting metaphor for the human psychology and how we as humans have developed a taste for slop in our media, developed a taste for negative vibrations, and how we actually fuel ourselves off negative vibrations. And I think a lot of the reason why we do this is because we're traumatized as a culture. And while even though some of us might have tons of energy in our everyday lives, we might be operating, in a more or less healthy American way, there's oftentimes these pockets of lethargy, these pockets of apathy, these pockets of depression that are within us that haven't been addressed. And as a result, we're kind of subconsciously looking for energy sources. And when we haven't really truly learned how to operate off of the energy of higher vibrations like true divine inspiration, or out of love, or out of the desire to share with others something beautiful, when we're not really operating off of these kinds of vibrations, the only fuel sources that can snap us out of this lethargy or this apathetic space oftentimes are negative dramas. Things like, thriving off, or getting excited off of the misfortune of someone else, or condemning somebody for something that you think is wrong. This gives us some spice. It kind of adds some intensity to what is otherwise like a more boring, lethargic kind of existence. So with that said, we're able to kind of recognize a little bit why we might be vamping, or what I call drama vamping, off of our environment, off of the internet, off of the people around us. And what I want to bring up as something to really pay attention to is disguised drama vamping. So disguised drama vamping, how it typically happens, or where I think it's most tricky and most important for us to kind of be aware of, is when we disguise drama vamping as a noble act of compassion or a noble act of empathy. And this is really tricky because oftentimes we will do the right things for the wrong reasons. So an example of that would be if there was some sort of negative drama or terrible thing that was happening to somebody in the world, and we decided we want to take a stand to help those people or speak out about the issue. Now, we could be doing that for two reasons. We could be doing that for, on one hand, which would be, say, like the right reason. We could be doing that from a space of love, of true love and compassion for the misfortune of these other people. And we could be coming forward to try to spread awareness about that, or to bring some sort of support to the people. Or we could be speaking out or standing up for these people because we like to fuel ourselves off of the condemnation of the people that are oppressing these other people. Or it really gets us going that this person is in some sort of drama, and we can kind of get frustrated and angry about it and feel that fiery passion, and then we want to take action from a place of resentment, or a place of spicy anger. Now, if it's for this, angry, fueling of negative vibration reasons, we're doing it for the wrong reasons. And ultimately, when you're taking action, even if it's the right thing, if it's for the wrong reasons, it's going to bring results to the entire situation that match the frequency from which we were inspired to act out of. So it's really important for us to really be honest with ourselves about what place we're coming from when we're even doing the so-called right thing, because the right thing for the wrong reasons is not really the right thing. So I really encourage all of you to take a look at what our reasons are for why we're doing the things that we are, and also take a look at what kind of things we find ourselves attracted to. What are we clicking on? Because 90+% of the population is all over these clickbait campaigns. There's a heavy magnetism towards drama and negativity, and that really should be an opportunity for us to turn the finger back around and point at us and say, why are we so interested in this stuff? And, it's important for us to be aware of the negative things that are happening in the world so that we can help other people. But we have to make sure that we're doing that from the right space, because if we're doing this from a space where we're just feeding this compulsion to consume lower vibrations and get kind of like an energy burst from something negative, we're actually going to perpetuate the problem. Because if we have a sweet tooth for drama, we're naturally going to want to keep creating drama so we can keep feeding that sweet tooth. So let's not feed this negative cycle of drama, and let's not be drama vampires. So end drama vamping today. That's the new slogan. So Patrick Hayes, thanks so much for tuning in, and I will talk to you next time.